I actually didn't know anything about self-publishing until I got into the community on Instagram. It wasn't, well, I had a vague idea that people could publish their own books, but I didn't really know anything about it until I got an Instagram page and I saw this huge community, and a lot of people do talk about the stigma of self-publishing, and there is that, but I have seen way more support for indie and self-publishing than I have, stigma around it or hate towards it. It's very rare now. I don't know if it's just the circles I'm in, but I don't see a lot of hate towards self-publishing. And at the time, I did actually write a sci-fi book. It was more for fun in 2020 till about the end of 2021. And I just did it for fun, and I didn't outline anything, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I wrote it, and it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So instead of continuing to work on it, I just scrapped the whole idea, and I was like, right, I want to write a fantasy book. I read more fantasy. It makes sense to write fantasy. I'm not sure why I went down the sci-fi route, but I did. But I moved over to fantasy eventually, and I thought, right, that's when I started looking into publishing traditionally or self-publishing. One of the things that there's a ton of videos and stuff comparing the two, and there's so many pros and cons to both, but one of the things that really made me lean towards self-publishing is, even with traditional publishing, you're kind of doing all the marketing yourself. The upside to traditional for me is, the idea of getting picked up by a publisher, getting the publisher to do these things for you, and also the huge marketing budgets and things behind it. But the more you look into it, traditional published authors don't get a huge marketing budget. You get maybe so many A-listers, or whatever you want to call them, a year, and it's very few. And I think even just getting published by a publisher is really difficult. So to become like one of their big releases for that year is so tough. So even the smaller traditionally published authors still need to do the marketing and things like that themselves. The really big upside is that they pay all the upfront costs, so you don't need to hire editors or artists or anything like that. The publishers will handle that. So that's one of the big upsides to traditional publishing. The other one I really like is being in bookshops. When you write a book, you want to see your book in a bookshop. I mean, that's just cool.
How did that feel when you saw it for the first time in a bookstore?
I've not yet, actually. I've not
seen
a bookstore yet. Yeah, no. A couple bookstore managers and people have been in contact. I'm hoping one day that would be really cool. But I've not yet seen one in a bookstore. So that's the downside to self-publishing, is you do need to have this connection to the person who deals with the stock, particularly with bigger bookstores, because indie bookstores are a lot more, they accept more indies, obviously, and a lot of them, but they just reach out to the people they know quite often, or books that they've seen about that are doing really, really well. So it does make it really difficult to get in bookstores for indie and self-published authors. But the other thing that really pushed me into self-publishing was the amount of time it takes to get into traditional, because you need to finish the book, and then there's querying for agents. You never know if you're going to actually get an agent because it's such a difficult thing to do. I know tons of talented writers that have just been looking for agents and just had no luck for years and years and years, and their work's excellent. A lot of them do sometimes go into self-publishing after that, and their books are really well received. So it's not always the product. A lot of the time it's if you find the right person, or even the right person at the right time. And the amount of time it would take to get an agent, and then the agent has to, sign on with the publisher. And then I was like, well, the chances of even becoming one of the ones that gets the big marketing budgets is so small. I just was like, right, I'm just going to self-publish this. I don't know how. I'm not actually trained in English. I do know English. That's not what I mean by that. I do, in fact, know the English language. But I don't have any, I didn't do any creative writing in university or anything like that. So I thought I'm going to hire a really good editor and things like that. But you never know if your book's going to resonate with people. So I was like, I'm just going to self-publish this. And if it flops, then I still had a good time writing it. Because in the end, that's what I really liked, was writing the book itself. So I just decided self-publishing just makes more sense for me personally. And while I was writing it, I was getting really into the community aspects and watching a lot of author interviews and lives and things like that, and a lot of them talked about certain editors and artists. And then I was writing this book and I hadn't even had the first draft done. I was like, right, I need to get Sarah Chorn, who did eventually edit the book, to be my editor. She seems awesome and really knowledgeable and just really supportive of her authors. So I was like, right, it'd be really cool if I could get her to edit the book. And also I watched an interview with Jed Hearn's, what was the name of the podcast? It's not actually live anymore. Wizards, Warriors, and Words. It's not live anymore, but they still have like 100 plus episodes on Jed's channel. And he had Felix Ortiz on, who is the artist of my book as well. And he talked a bit about it, and I see his work everywhere. If you're in the indie space, the name Felix Ortiz comes up all the time because his covers are stunning. I was like, how cool would it be to get him to do my cover? So I was writing it, enjoying writing it, and then I was like, it'd be really cool to work with these two people. It made so much sense to go through the self-publishing route for me.